Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Blacklogic. Finally, we have some good news that America is already changing for the better because the House of Representatives, led by the Republicans, has passed the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, which aims to ban transgender athletes from participating in women's school sports teams. The bill, which passed with a narrow vote of 218 to 206 votes, defines sex in Title IX based strictly on reproductive biology and genetics at birth. This is actually a good bill because, again, just because you decide or just because you believe a certain thing that you are a woman, but you have X and Y chromosomes, your DNA, your RNA, your chromosomes are still a man. That estrogen versus your testosterone still are going to be higher than a woman. So again, that is not a fair, that won't be a fair competition. That won't be a fair match if you have a biological man versus a biological woman. Now, this will prevent transgender women from competing on women's teams, a move aligning with President-elect Donald Trump's campaign focus on transgender rights. The legislation, sparked by debates over competitive fairness versus inclusion, has seen 2 Democrats join Republican support. This is that bipartisanship that politicians always speak about, but you never hear of. And now, finally, we're getting movement. While one Democratic vote represents, if enacted, this would make allowing transgender women in female sports a violation of Title IX rules, highlighting ongoing tensions and discussions surrounding high-profile cases like Leah Thomas. And what's important about this, you have House Speaker Mike Johnson. This is where Donald Trump wanted him to stay in office because I think he essentially knew his views. So no need to change the speaker. We want to keep Mike Johnson in place. Now, he's also with former collegiate swimmer Riley Gaines. She's been pushing for this for a very long time, basically stating, hey, this is unfair. Men have larger muscles. They have, larger lung capacities. All these other things are larger, 2 to 3 times larger, which give men unfair advantage in competing with women. Okay, biological women against biological men, and no one is infringing on their identification or what they identify as, or what they believe, or what they think they know, or what they do know. But again, this is a move in the right direction for the country because, again, we're now seeing through the BS of the liberal left telling people that biological men who transgender to women are just as women as biological women. And all of us knew that. Even they knew that, okay? And that's my conjecture on that piece because we have more to get into because it gets deeper than that. During Pete Hegseth's Senate Armed Service Committee confirmation, because he's going to be Secretary of Defense, his nomination to lead the Defense Department, he faced substantial scrutiny over his past comments concerning women in combat roles. Hegseth, who has openly stated in past interviews on the Sean Ryan Show podcast that women should not serve in combat roles. Listen, keep that in your brain housing group. That's a military term. Keep that in your brain housing group. Women should not serve in combat roles, not serve in the military, okay? Not serve in a combat environment, but serve in combat roles, okay? Like infantry and recon soldiers. They argue that their presence complicates military effectiveness and undermines the military lethality. During the hearing, he pledges to eliminate wokeness and promote a warrior ethos at the Pentagon. Again, people are still trying to find what wokeness is. I think people should really leave wokeness alone. If you say things that are more liberal, things that kind of blend, that we have this equality in America when it comes to men and women, we know that not to be true. Okay, we know that to be true because most men do not want women in combat roles because women can serve as a distraction, especially when you have a bunch of heterosexual men. I'm just keeping it real. And again, this is very opinionated. Most men do not want women in combat roles while they're fighting beside one another because, again, not only from men being attracted, heterosexual men being attracted to women, but there's a second component that we're missing. When we look at women, we don't see hardcore, strong, and robust and killer mentality. We see our sisters. We see our moms. And I know a lot of people are like, well, you should look at them just as warrior as you look at yourself. Yes, we do look at them warrior, but when combat is going on and people are getting wounded and injured and harmed and explosions, there's something within a man. This is biological, that we will risk our lives to save a woman because that is inherently traditional in men's core value as being Americans. And I would like to think that from around the world. We know biologically what men are. We know what biological women are. So we look at it very, very differently. Now, despite his efforts to clarify these views and defend his qualifications by citing his military service and leadership in the National Guard, concerns persist among senators, including some Republicans, about his ability to lead a diverse military force and his stance on gender integration within the military. We're going to spend some time here because I want you guys to hear what Mr. Reed had to say.
Mr. Hegden, I do not believe that you are qualified to meet the overwhelming demands of this job.
The Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength. And in pursuing these America First national security goals will remain patriotically apolitical and stridently constitutional.
You said in your statement, you don't want politics in the DOD. Everything you've said in these public statements is politics. I don't want women. I don't want moms. What's wrong with a mom, by the way? Once you have babies, you therefore are no longer able to be lethal.
I have never disparaged women serving in the military. I respect every single female service member that has put on the uniform, past and present. My critiques, Senator, recently and in the past, and from personal experience, have been instances where I've seen standards lowered.
Would you use our military to take over Greenland or an ally of Denmark?
Senator, one of the things that President Trump is so good at is never strategically tipping his hand. And so I would never in this public forum give one way or another direct what orders the president would give me in any context.
That sounds to me that you would contemplate carrying out such an order to basically invade Greenland.
Many of
Whoa. No, that doesn't mean that, Senator. What that means is he's not going to reveal what Donald Trump probably told him already of what they plan to do, whether it be economically or militarily. That's what that means. Don't allude to what you think he's saying. Okay, just say, okay, we hear your comments. You're deflecting or you're not going to answer the question directly. Say something on that lines. This is what I hate. Now, I'm no friend of Pete Hegseth. I'm no friend. I'm no foe. I'm just being very, very neutral and unbiased about how this was not a confirming committee. This seems as though this man was interrogated. Okay. And again, I agree with some of Pete's views and some of it I disagree with, but that's okay. No one is perfect. And this is a large role because we're talking about the defense of America. But again, women, if you're listening to me, would you want to serve in a combat role? We're not talking about the military. You can go do HR, human resources in the military. They have those jobs. They have supply, also known as logistics. They have those jobs. They have you being a nurse or in the medical field or a medic. They have those jobs. They have a lot of combat support roles that a lot of women have been in. But when we're talking about direct combat soldiers, we're talking about infantry. We're talking about there's women in military artillery. There's women serving in artillery brigades and in artillery battalions. Yes, we have women serving where they're shooting large rounds at the enemy. That is a combat role. Now, but that's not direct combat. And again, this is my conjecture, or what I believe Pete is getting at, is that women serving in those combat roles, those foot troops, okay, those infantry soldiers, those recon soldiers. Again, I don't think most women don't want to serve in those roles. Most women serve in roles that are non-combat related, okay? It's inherently what we are biologically. Men are more prone to go to war. Men are more prone to fight. Women are not. Again, I agree with some of his views. So again, they treat it as like an interrogation where you're just supposed to be asking questions and see his views on it. And, yeah, you should press him a little bit, but damn.
If your work colleagues have said that you show up for work under the influence of alcohol or drunk, I know you've denied that, but you would agree with me, right, that if that was the case, that would be disqualifying for somebody to be Secretary of Defense. Senator, those are all anonymous false claims, and the totality. They're not anonymous. The letters on the record here. They're not anonymous. On the record, we've seen records with names attached to them. Senator Kaine, or I guess I better use.
Yeah, you've seen, and again, this is not me taking up for Pete. I always look at situations as if I was in that position or a close friend of mine was in that position. And what are the questions that I would ask, or what are some of the things that I would refute? Okay, where you have these anonymous names that you only know, do I have the right to face my accusers? Okay, do you think that I would get backlash or repercussions because you told me the names? Now, you know these names and all these other people know these names, but I don't know these names. No. These could be fictitious names that you guys came up with to defame my character. No, I want to know who my accusers are.
The senator from Virginia starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job?
Uh-oh.
And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have.
I don't want a long answer. Yes or no. Have you led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge?
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or
with the
no,
money
did
that
you
we
lead
had.
an audit?
And the way
yes
my
or
leadership
no,
has
did you lead
been
an audit?
stated
Yes or
has
no.
been completely
What are you afraid of? You
mischaracterized.
can't answer this question. Yes or no, did
Whoa. Is this an interrogation? You know what? I don't want to be confirmed. I don't want to be interrogated, giving me a yes or no question, because here's the thing. Politicians, okay, and Pete Hegseth is a politician himself, especially in a role of this high visibility, and he's doing what every other politician would do. There's no direct answer. I'm always going to give you this very vague, very over-encompassing or encompassing answer that you're going to have to make a decision for yourself. I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say no. And unfortunately, that is American politics. There's very few times where you hear a politician say, no, this is what it is, or yes. It's most like, well, I don't see it that way, or you need to understand the complexities of all the details and evidence within this story. I don't think you have a right account of reports. They say all of these things. They just deflect. So you can go back and forth and yell and yes or no, but if this was going through and you was on the chopping block, you wouldn't answer it straight either.
you lead an audit? Do you not know this answer?
Senator, every
Yes or
part
no?
of my leadership
Yes
of these
or no?
organizations,
Yes or
I'm not a perfect person, but redemption is real. And God forged me in ways that I know I'm prepared for. And I'm honored by the people standing and sitting behind me, and look forward to leading this Pentagon on behalf of the warfighters.
Thank you, Mr.
All right, now that was a very short clip. I want to leave the best when it comes to this segment, talking about Pete Hegseth and his confirmation hearing. I think today we're going to have Marco Rubio, okay? But I wanted to spend some time here. We won't be here too long, but Senator Warren takes the cake here because she seemed very, very emotional because she reached out to Pete Hegseth a couple of times and wanted to sit down with him and ask him certain questions, but he always denied her invite. So she has somewhat of a personal vendetta, and she points this out very broadly here. Everyone's going to know that this is a personal vendetta. And I want you guys to listen in because this gets good, and I won't spend too much time here, but I think this is important because this is what some of the people that are going through that Donald Trump has selected to be in these very high cabinet spaces within the Trump administration.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. So if you're confirmed as Secretary of Defense, you will oversee our military, including about 250,000 women who currently serve on active duty in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Space Forces, and the Marines. And I have serious concerns that your behavior toward women disqualifies you from serving in this role. Now, I've been trying to get answers from you for quite some time on this. You haven't wanted to meet or to answer any of my questions. So we'll just have to do it here and dive in. I want to pick up on some of the questions asked by Senators Shaheen and Gillibrand and Hirono. And I just want to make sure we have a list of some of the facts that I think are undisputed. I'm not going to talk about anonymous sources. I'm just going to quote you directly. We've got the video. We've got it in print.
Now, that one part I respect about Elizabeth Warren. We're not going to talk about anonymous. We're going to take your words and ask questions based on what you said. Thank you. Now, that's the one transparency I love. All these anonymous people. No, we're going to take your words and ask you questions.
So going back to January 2013, you told a Fox News interviewer that women in the military simply couldn't measure up to men in the military, saying that allowing women to serve in combat roles would force the military to lower the bar. You picked up on that same theme in 2015, making remarks on Fox News, referring to women in combat as, quote, it would erode standards. June 2024, you said on Ben Shapiro's podcast, quote, women shouldn't be in combat at all. And then, of course, we've talked about it in 2024. You published a book, and you say on page 26 of your book, we need moms, but not in the military, especially in combat units. Page 48 of your book, you claim that women should not be in combat roles, because men are distracted by women. And then 10 weeks ago, you appeared on the Sean Ryan show and said, I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. Now,
and again, I'm trying to tell you, family, I've served over 20 years. And this is the ideology of most men in the military, whether they are in combat roles or not. And this is the ideology of most women in the military. That is why you don't see a lot of women in combat roles. You don't see them going out for infantry. We're talking about 0.01% of women who join actually consider being in combat roles. You have some women who do air assault, which is just a course where you get a badge and you can actually use that in non-combat related missions. You also have women who went airborne, where they're jumping from planes at low altitude, and they are in a lot of non-combat related roles. There's very few women in the military who actually want to be in direct combat related roles. There are a lot of women in combat support, but that's not direct combat. Again, if we're looking at the definition of combat, it simply says fighting between armed forces. Fighting between armed forces. Non-violent conflict or opposition. So the way that Pete Hegseth, and again, this is my conjecture, and this is what I believe he's alluding to, where women are in direct contact with the enemy. Where women are in direct contact with the enemy, not in a combat environment. It's different. You can be deployed to Afghanistan. You can be deployed to Iraq and not be in a direct combat mission or in a direct combat role, but you are in a combat environment. It's very, very different. Men look at women in combat when we're side by side in the fighting hole, in the foxhole, where I was both Marines and Army. So again, they're two of the same. And this is a joke. This is a joke, okay? And no one should be getting offended with this joke. In the Marine Corps, we call them fighting holes because we fight from these dugout holes that come around armpit high and M16 long vertically and horizontally. But in the Army, it's the same standard, but it's a different name. And this is the joke that the Marines make. Army personnel, Army soldiers call these holes foxholes. And what do fox usually do when they go into a hole? They hide. So again, that's just a joke. And I know I didn't say it in a joking manner, but nonetheless, this is what a lot of men are about right here. We don't want to see our sisters, our aunts, our nieces, our granddaughters, our mothers, our grandma, whatever, in the military in direct combat roles where they're going to face the enemy, where they're going to face the enemy. And a lot of these other armies, a lot of these other military, foreign military, they do not have women in combat roles. So if it ever gets to hand-to-hand combat, she's going to have to be really like strong. She's going to have to be strong. She's going to have to be well-trained, hand-to-hand combat. And again, a lot of us just don't want to see that. It's not about being sexist, okay? Because here's the thing, men have respect for women who can pass the standardized test to become an infantry soldier. Men have respect for women who can pass those tests to become Marine Recon or Special Forces or an Army Ranger or the Air Force Special Services piece. Again, there's very, very few women in the world that can pass these standardized tests that essentially was geared around men, because the mission calls for a certain level of strength. It calls for a certain level of stamina. And only women who can really pass these tests are like high collegiate or gold medalist Olympic women, okay, that can actually compete with men on a very high level. Again, this is my conjecture, and I believe this is what Pete Hegseth was alluding to. I digress.
I presume you recall making all these statements?
Senator, I'm not familiar with the article you're pointing to in 2013, but it underscores my argument
got the
completely, because
video.
in that 2013 argument, I was talking about standards. Standards are what it's always been about,
Please, let's not have
Senator.
this same fight again.
Always been about Senate
I've quoted
standards.
you directly. We've got the video. We're happy to show it. But I want to be clear here. For 12 years, you were quite open about your views, and your views were consistently the same. Women are inferior soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and guardians. And in case anyone missed the point, and these are your words from 10 weeks ago, women absolutely.
I got to stop it right there, because again, she is quoting his words. Now, if he did state that, I'm not familiar with these comments that he made, but if he did say that, no, women are not inferior. Women have their own standards in the military, and that was the plus size I number. We never want to return back to World War I or World War II, where women had to do all the jobs in America while all the men went to war. No. There needs to be a certain balance, because there's a lot of jobs in the military that women can do very easily that don't require any physical strength. Okay, you can be human resources, also known as S1 in a lot of military service, or the administration office. They can be in finance. They can be in legal or JAG, okay, the judicial process. All of these very clerical jobs that the military has. Every military branch has these different jobs where we need people in. But when war comes, all the men, and here's the thing, not all the men go to war. A lot of men are in support roles too. But to their point, if he stated this, I do not agree with Pete with this. Okay, I'm being very unbiased here. I do not agree with that. There's a lot of MOSs, there's a lot of military jobs that women can do just as good as men, if not better.
Absolutely, straight up, should not be permitted to serve in combat. And I notice on each of these quotes, those are said without qualification.
And to her point, and this reverberating what I stated before, she keeps referring to combat. Combat. She has yet to say non-combat related roles. Everything is combat. And again, a lot of men and women in the military who serve in our country honorably, shout out goes out to them. A lot of them don't want to see or themselves in direct combat roles.
It's not by how much you can lift or how fast you can run. They don't belong in combat, period, or your words, straight up. And then on November 9th, 2024, just 32 days after your last public comment saying that women
she said it's not about how strong they are, how fast they are. If we just go sheer off statistics, majority of men are stronger than majority of women. Majority of men are faster than majority of women. Now, there are exceptional women that are faster than men. There are exceptional women who are stronger than men, but everyone knows this is just based off basic biology. This ain't being sexist. This ain't being a separatist at any point of the matter. This is just biology. And listen, you got to deal with it. Let's stop being so damn liberal all the time. Let's just be real with the facts. We have scientists that let us know this.
Absolutely should not be in combat. You declared that, quote, some of our greatest warriors are women, and you support having them serve in combat. Now, that is a very, very big about face in a very, very short period of time. So help me understand, Mr. Hegseth, what extraordinary event happened in that 32-day period that made you change the core values you had expressed for the preceding 12 years?
Now, we all know that was a setup question, because what happened in those 32 days where he changed his stance is when Donald Trump selected him to be head of the Department of Defense. Yeah, and I tell you that a lot of politicians do this. They change their stance because of certain circumstances. And if you want that position, then yeah, you would change your stance as well. You may look at things very, very differently, okay? Because here's the thing. Can you gain insight in 32 days? Absolutely. You can gain insight and change your opinion or change your stance on something in a matter of seconds, in a matter of minutes, even though you was hardcore driven on a core belief system that you didn't once believe, and someone gave you insight. Maybe it was a particular story. But again, to her point, she does have a point here. And again, I know people will like to side one way or another. Most people like to side with Elizabeth Warren. Another side of people like to side with Pete Hegseth. I'm being right, center mass with this, because this is important. This is important because this is not just showcasing how politicians operate, but it showcases how quickly they can change their stance based upon the status and or position they may be offered.
Senator, again, I very much appreciate you bringing up my comments from 2013, because for me, this issue has always been about standards. And unfortunately, because of some of the people that have been in political power for the last 4 years, priorities other than standards, lethality, and meritocracy have driven decision-making.
I'm quoting you from the podcast. Women shouldn't be in combat at all. Where is the reference to standards? That they should be there if they can carry, if they can run? I don't see that at all, Mr. Hegseth. What I see is that there's a 32-day period in which you suddenly have another description about your views of women in the military. And I just want...
I just want to give my views, because as I stated before, there's a lot of men and women in the military believe this as well. But I will say this. We have some exceptional female soldiers, Marines, sailors, naval men, and Coast Guard that are serving our nation honorably. And if they can pass, if they can pass the standardized tests for those combat-related roles, then yes, they should be in those combat roles. Because if you can do what the man does, because again, these tests are standardized at a very high level, and it was based upon men, but in the top tier of men to serve in these roles, then yes, they should be able to fight for their country. They should be able to go face to face, hand to hand with the enemy. But again, there's very few women who want to do that. Then there's even more very few women who actually go for these tests and pass them.
Want to know what changed in the 32 days that the song you sang is not the song you come in here today to sing?
Senator, the concerns I have, and the concerns that many have had, especially in ground combat units, is that in pursuit of certain percentages or quotas, standards have been changed. And that makes the combat more difficult
Let me make a
for everybody
suggestion
involved.
about what happened in that 32 days. You got a nomination from President Trump. Now, I've heard of deathbed conversions, but this is the first time I've heard of a nomination conversion. And I hope you understand.
You know what? She marks a good point. But to Pete's point, let me talk about what Pete just said about standards have been lowered, and in combat, there's certain tasks, there's certain missions. And what people don't understand, it's not like you just get your gun, you get your bullets, or you get your rounds and you go to the front lines, or you go out and conduct combat related missions that you may come in close proximity where you're, firing at the enemy. No. There's all these little things that soldiers, Marines, sailors, Coast Guard, and naval men and women have to do in order to even roll out to go on mission. You have to pack the trucks. You have to get your gear. So let's take, for instance, something as a tackle box, like a very large tackle box. Let's say this tackle box is 200-300 pounds. Because again, this is very large equipment. You have DVE equipment, digital enhancement equipment, where you can see the enemy at night and you see their heat signature. We have, we have night vision goggles. We have all these tackle boxes, the large cases with numerous amounts of equipment inside of it. Now, in the military, when I first joined the military, it says 2-man carry. It actually stated that. It says 2-man carry. So 2 men, not necessarily not their size, but most men, okay, can pick it up. Okay, I would say 8 out of 10 soldiers, 8 out of 10 Marines, except, well, probably 9 out of 10 Marines, but 8 out of 10 soldiers. Again, I've been in both services, so I can make jokes. I've been a Marine and a soldier as well. But anyway, 2-man carry. They pick it up, they load it up into the truck, into the Humvee, into the MRAP, whatever military vehicle that you have. As I was winding down my last 10 to 8 years, you start seeing the labeling on a lot of these cases, a lot of these tackle boxes, a lot of this equipment change. It's hard to say 4-person carry. That is because that was one of the first times of certain standards or certain things being lower because of the influx of women in the military. So that's just a very, very small example. So now we're using more resources to carry the same amount of equipment. So now we have 2 extra people out of the fight. We have 2 extra people that could be doing another task, doing one task what 2 men used to do. That's not being sexist. That's just the reality of it all.
That many women serving in the military right now might think that if you can convert so rapidly your long-held and aggressively pursued views in just 32 days, that 32 days after you get confirmed, maybe you'll just reverse those views and go back to the old guy who said straight up, women do not belong in combat. Now, Mr. Hagstaff.
Now, I won't let her tally too long from that because, quite frankly, that will not happen because whether his views change or not, what Pete may not understand because, again, he was National Guard, he was not active duty, but there's women in National Guard. But he's probably seen his share enough to have his views. But, again, we have women in the military. And, again, this is not about women in the military. This is about women in combat, and in my conjecture, and what I believe he's alluding to, is women in direct combat roles where they're infantry, recon, etc. So again, no, this is not an attack on women not being in the military. I just wanted to clear that up. And last but not least, good old TikTok, because as the potential ban on TikTok looms in the U.S., reports have surfaced that Chinese officials might consider selling TikTok U.S. operations to Elon Musk. What happened to Mr. Wonderful? Mr. Wonderful was in some of the last proceedings or getting close to a final deal. Now, maybe Mr. Wonderful and Elon Musk is going to share a partnership on this. But again, there was a conversation I was having. And they were like, oh, couldn't they bring that Elon Musk is doing a monopoly because he has Twitter, X, also known as Twitter? And I'm like, well, no, look at Mark Zuckerberg. He started off with Facebook, changed the company to Meta. Now, Facebook is just an entity within the Meta ecosystem, but he also has Instagram. He also has Threads. He also has WhatsApp. So again, this can be another component within the Tesla world, or he might name it something or put it under another LLC altogether or a holding company altogether. Now, amid requirements from a new law mandating ByteDance to divest or face prohibition, this sale could potentially value TikTok's U.S. branch between $40 billion and $50 billion because TikTok has denied these claims. Meanwhile, with the uncertainty surrounding TikTok, many Americans users are exploring alternative platforms, and a significant number have shifted to what we know as Red Note, also known as, and I'm going to spell this because This is a Chinese word, XIAOHONGSHU, or also known as Little Red Book or Red Note, which, like TikTok, offers short form video content and operate as an online marketplace. Red Note has seen a rapid ascent to the top of the US App Store in free downloads, indicating a robust cross-cultural exchange and a lesser concern about Beijing's influence compared to governmental apprehensions. Now, this migration illustrates a broader trend of users moving away from TikTok to platforms like Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, and mostly Red Note. Although these alternatives also face regulatory challenges similar to those confronting TikTok. Yeah, they are doing that. Again, when our government sees that a lot of people are flocking to another Chinese app, Red Note may come under scrutiny as well as another espionage spy app that they're using to push propaganda on the U.S. by the way of these apps to change the way we go about voting and how we think about China, the way we think about everything that's dealing with our society. So I can understand the shift that people are switching over to Red Note because, okay, you guys are going to ban TikTok. A lot of influencers have come out against this. They've been like, no, don't ban TikTok. Just sell it to somebody so they can still make their money, because a lot of people, are making tons of money off of TikTok as well as Instagram as well as YouTube. So when you're taking some of their, their job, these are their jobs. If you ban TikTok, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of influencers who are making thousands of dollars a month. Some of them, making just enough to pay their bills and ban themselves, but doing something they love. Okay, being an influencer, being a content creator, this may hurt a large portion, and mostly those people under 35. Okay, because a lot of people under 35 are on TikTok. This could hurt their daily bread. Now, for you guys with Android, I'm an Android lover. Okay, I have nothing against people who are on Apple or iOS. I just wanted to show this is how Red Note looks on the Google Play Store. Okay, this is Red Note. This is the platform that a lot of people from TikTok are switching to. Okay, now as you see here, here's the Chinese version. There's already 10 million plus downloads. But again, once Americans get on it, it will soon. Now, of course, when you download the American version, it will be in English. Okay, it will be in English. But again, this is just showing some of the content here. It's very, very similar to TikTok. But anyway, I just wanted to give you guys an alternative there. But nonetheless, I thank you guys for joining me here this morning. You guys have a great and wonderful day. This is Blacklogic.